Promise Beneath the Stars. The first time Emma saw Aiden, it was in the middle of a thunderstorm. She had been stranded at the old train station, her umbrella broken, her suitcase soaked, and her phone battery dead. Aiden, a quiet man with a kind smile and a book in his hand, offered her shelter beneath his large coat. It was nothing more than a brief encounter, two strangers meeting under the rain, but it was enough to leave an impression that lingered long after the crowds had cleared. Emma was a writer who had moved to the small coastal town of Windale to find inspiration for her next novel. Aiden, a local astronomy teacher, had lived there all his life, spending his nights mapping constellations and teaching children to dream beyond the stars. Their paths continued to cross in the most unexpected ways, at the cafe where Emma wrote every morning, in the park where Aiden walked his dog, even at the library where he gave weekend lectures. It started slowly. Glances, polite smiles, short conversations. Then came longer talks, coffee dates, and late-night walks by the shore. Aiden showed Emma the constellations above the lighthouse, and Emma read him chapters of her unfinished story, letting her words fall into the wind like wishes. One evening, under a sky full of stars, Aiden took her hand and whispered, "Do you believe in promises made beneath the stars?" She smiled, her heart racing. "Only if they're kept." So, they made a promise. No matter where life would take them, no matter how far they'd drift apart, they would meet again on this same beach, under the same sky, exactly 1 year from that night. It was a romantic idea, the kind Emma usually reserved for her characters. But something about Aiden made her believe it could be real. Then came the phone call. Emma's mother had fallen ill, and she had to return to the city. They hugged goodbye beneath the lighthouse, and Aiden whispered, "I'll wait. 1 year. I promise." The year passed slowly. Emma's days were filled with hospital visits, work, and the bitter ache of distance. They exchanged letters at first, dozens of them, then fewer, and eventually silence. Emma feared the worst, that time had changed them, that maybe he had moved on. Still, on the night of the promised reunion, she returned to Windale. She stood on the beach beneath the stars, her heart uncertain but hopeful. Aiden was already there. He was standing where the tide met the sand, holding the same coat he had lent her the day they met. "I kept my promise," he said, his voice steady. Emma ran to him, tears filling her eyes. "So did I." They kissed under the stars, the waves crashing softly behind them. It was as if time had never passed. From that night on, they were no longer two strangers connected by fate, but two souls bound by choice, by love, and by a promise that the stars themselves had witnessed. Where the river forgets the sea. In a quiet village nestled in the curve of a slow-moving river, lived a girl named Alara. She was known for her laughter, bright like wind chimes on a summer day, and her quiet kindness that lingered like the scent of jasmine after the rain. Alara spent her days working in the village library, a small building filled with aging books and forgotten letters. Across the river, in a weathered stone cottage shaded by willow trees, lived a young boatmaker named Rowan. He was a solitary soul, quiet and thoughtful, often seen carving boats with hands that seemed to remember the shape of dreams. Though many girls tried to catch his gaze, he only ever looked across the water, toward the library window, where Alara sat reading under the golden light of dusk. They had never spoken, not truly. Once, he had handed her a package of books delivered by river. Their fingers brushed. She had smiled. He had nodded. That was all. But it stayed with them both, like a secret the wind refused to carry away. Seasons passed. The river rose and fell. Every evening, Alara watched the sun melt behind the trees, wondering if he ever thought of her. And Rowan carved boats with sails he never raised, wondering if she knew they were for her. Then one day, a storm came. The river flooded, wild and merciless. The village panicked as the waters claimed fields and paths. Rowan's boatyard was nearly swept away. And Alara, she disappeared. When the storm broke, and the waters retreated, Rowan found the library's door torn from its hinges. Inside, the books lay ruined, and she was nowhere. For days he searched. Along banks. through forests, downstream. Nothing. But love, real love, does not sink. It drifts. It floats. It finds a way. Weeks later, a letter arrived at the village. It was damp, the ink smudged, but the name was clear, Rowan. Inside, written in a trembling hand, were only a few words. I'm by the sea, where the river forgets everything, but I never forgot you. He didn't wait. He packed nothing but a journal and a tiny wooden boat he had carved for her long ago. He followed the river south, walking for days, sleeping under stars, until finally, he found the sea. There, on a quiet shore lined with white stones and driftwood, stood Alara, her dress fluttering, her hair salt-swept, her eyes wide with tears. I thought you were lost, she whispered. I was, he said, stepping closer, until I found you. And there, where the river forgot the name of the village, the scent of jasmine, and the sound of laughter, two souls remembered everything that mattered. They stayed by the sea, building a new library, one filled with stories written in salt and hope. And every evening, they watched the river kiss the ocean, thankful that love, like water, always finds its way home.